2007. A normal night. A normal night where 25-year-old Justin Miller was doing his usual rounds, checking on his employees and closing up his place of work. And at 7:30, his life was tragically taken by a mystery person. Justin was a father, a son, a brother, a husband, and a friend, whose life was unfairly stolen from him. But not before he was able to live life to his fullest. And that is precisely what his friends and family have continued to do. Live life to their fullest to carry on Justin's memory. Hi, I'm Bria.
I'm Julia.
And I'm Kira.
And this is Justin Miller. Justin was known to be a loving father, husband, and brother. He was a protector who always made time for his family and was known to be a family man. He was a role model for his 4 younger sisters and his almost 2-year-old daughter, Riley. He was funny, caring, and hardworking. Some things he loved were Bengals football, Duke basketball, and Dave Matthews concerts.
This is our family tree of Justin Miller. The people in blue are those that we have spoken to on the phone or have emailed.
We are very grateful to be able to speak to many of Justin's loving family members and friends to learn more about who he was as a person. This is Kara, one of his 4 younger sisters, and some things that she loves about him.
He was very funny, very calm, down to earth. He didn't know a stranger. He never had enemies. He truly was just the most genuine soul.
And these are things that everyone says about Justin, just how loving and caring he was. Now let's hear from Justin Snow.
He was a Will Ferrell fan, like built big time. So there's a picture I have of him where he's down in Gatlinburg at the Wax Museum, standing next to Will Ferrell being Ricky Bobby, and he did the exact same pose.
This is just one example of the things that Justin liked to do and how much he enjoyed his time with his family and friends. Now let's hear from his mother.
He was very well loved by all. And for me, being my first child, that's of course special. My only boy, and I can't tell you how bad I miss him.
As you can see, Justin was loved by everyone. That is why we chose this case, to bring him honor and justice for him and his family.
This was on November 2nd, 2007. He was at Heartland Cash Advance, which was his place of work, and he was just closing up, checking in on all of his employees before leaving. When all of a sudden the suspect came up and shot him 3 times and then 3 more times at close range. There was little to no evidence left behind, as well as no surveillance footage, and out of the 6 bullet casings, only one of them was found. We learned that from the coroner's report. There was also little to no witnesses that we know of, and the suspect was described to be between 5'6" and 6 feet, 120 to 190 pounds, and dressed all black, as well as wearing a black ski mask. On the Ohio Attorney General's report, it said that this could be a possible robbery. It had it in quotation marks. As well as when we talked to Detective Thompson, he confirmed that there were previous robberies in the past, but for this case, there was nothing taken off Justin. As well as 2 years later, in 2009, there was a Crime Stoppers YouTube reenactment. This photo is from September 2007, where Heartland Cash was. It was part of a strip mall on Cleveland Avenue. When we talked to the family, they talked about how the suspect could have hidden behind in the neighborhood and then come around the corner. Although Justin was a loving soul and avoided any kind of violence, this area did have a high crime rate, which did put him at a risk.
And then now I'm going to get into some of the documents that we're thankfully able to receive throughout our process. The first one being the police report. We were thankfully able to receive this thanks to the Franklin County Sheriff's Department. With the police report came some crime scene photos as well as investigative notes. This is one of the photos that we were shared. This is Justin's workplace, just to give you a visual. This is the Heartland Cash Advance. The next document, and the very first document that we received that kind of started our case, was the autopsy report. We were thankfully given this from David Moffett, the Franklin County coroner. With this came the toxicology report as well as the coroner's facts and findings. Through looking through these reports, we found that Justin had sustained multiple injuries. This included rib fractures, a fracture to the left clavicle, perforation of the lungs, vertebrae fractures, and gunshot wounds to both the upper left and right lower extremities. Taking a look at the toxicology report, it shows right over here that he only tested positive for Tylenol or ibuprofen as well as some caffeine, and everything else came back negative. Before I get into our people of interest, I do just want to throw in a quick disclaimer that we are not accusing anyone of anything, and that the information I'm about to share is just stuff that we have been given and received throughout our process. For the sake of this presentation, we will be using fake names and will not be using the real names. That being said, our very first person of interest is going to be Naomi. Naomi was a co-worker of Justin. She was under Justin's management. Justin was a manager of the Heartland Cash Advance. She was investigated for possible embezzlement for around $30,000, $35,000 from this business. When Justin had found out about this possible embezzlement, he did fire her. Further, that being said, he was the primary witness against Naomi and a possible accomplice, a confirmed accomplice that I will get into in just about a second. And through speaking through some family and everything, we found that Justin had kept a file on Emily and Naomi's possible embezzlement. However, we were not able to locate this file. Speaking of Emily, our next person of interest is going to be her. She was confirmed by Detective Roddick that she was the accomplice to Naomi's possible embezzlement. Since being the accomplice, when Detective Roddick questioned her, she disclosed that the bank job that was scheduled for the night of Justin's murder actually happened the night after. That being said, that money could not have been the motive due to nothing being taken off of Justin and the bank drop being moved. Our next person of interest is linked to our very first person of interest that I spoke about, Naomi. This is the husband of Naomi. It is confirmed by Detective Roddick that he had threatened Justin prior to his death, and there is also police reports of these threats, as well as police reports of him trying to cash fraudulent checks from other Heartland Cash Advances in the area. Our last person of interest is going to be Martin. It is stated in a court document how he was the primary and sole suspect in this case. However, there wasn't enough evidence to convict him. As well as, approximately a year after Justin's murder, on October 18, 2008, he was charged with felonious assault and attempted murder, further showing Martin's violent tendencies.
In addition to what Kira said, when researching further into Martin's criminal record, we found this written in his judicial motion for early release. So he was sentenced to 4 years in prison for the 2 charges of felonious assault and attempted murder. And after 2 years of being in jail, he did this judicial motion for early release, and the judge ended up denying this motion with one of the main reasons being that he is the primary and sole suspect in the senseless homicide. And then it goes on to describe what happened to Justin, how he was a hardworking college graduate with a wife, with a child, and how he was killed during a robbery. So although we do not have any evidence that clearly states that he is the main and primary suspect, we do have this court's evidence. So here are the relationships between these people of interest. So Martin was related to Naomi. Naomi was the co-worker and was under Justin's management, as well as Emily was the confirmed accomplice of Naomi in the possible embezzlement. Naomi and David were married at the time, and David was the one who threatened Justin prior to his death, and this is also confirmed by Detective Roddick. So since there are no records or of any charges of the embezzlement at Heartland Cash Advance, we are going to show that these people of interest do have a record of forgery, uttery, attempted murder, and felonious assault. So in January 2007, David, who is Naomi's husband, was charged 2 times for forgery and uttery at Kroger. Uttery basically means that he knew he was using a fraudulent check and it was not an accident. This Kroger was 9 minutes away from the Heartland Cash Advance where Naomi worked and Justin worked and where he was killed. And then May 2007, Naomi was charged for forgery at the same Kroger that her husband was charged for. And a month before Justin's death, Naomi was charged for passing bad checks at a Meijer. And this Meijer was 3 minutes away from the Heartland Cash Advance. Late July and December, David was charged with attempted forgery and possessing criminal tools. Possessing criminal tools means that he had something on him that he could have used to forge. In January 2008, David was charged with 6 attempted forgery charges, 8 forgery charges, and 8 possessing criminal tools charges, totaling up in 22 charges. And as previously stated, Martin was charged a year after Justin's death for attempted murder and felonious assault. The proximity between Martin and where Naomi and David lived was 10 minutes away, so as you can see, it was very close, as well as where all of these charges were committed were also very close to his place of work and where he died. And although there is no embezzlement charges, there is a clear link between the types of crimes that these people of interest have committed and have been charged with, and how they are very much capable to be able to do the alleged embezzlement at the Heartland Cash Advance.
Although the facts of this case remain unsolved, the person at the center of this is not a puzzle. Justin was a loving family member and a friend who loved sports and music. And we do this case not just to find an answer, but to also remember who Justin was, as said by his best friend Kyle.
He was a silly, goofy dude. He was a great guy. He was, my best friend, and he was awesome. He was a great dad. He was a great husband.
As well as some of Tiffany's favorite things about him.
Always like the peacemaker. He was like the one who kept everybody else out of trouble, which I love. Just really easy to be around with everybody.
And his little sister, Carissa.
He really was like such a well-rounded, kind-hearted soul. And no one ever deserves to be like the victim of violence.
And Carissa is right. No one deserves to be a victim of violence. And we did this presentation to shed a light on Justin, and for hopefully that one day him and his family will receive the justice they deserve. On the right side, this is a plaque for remembering Justin at his high school, as well as in this photo, which he received from Justin's mother. It is a photo of Justin and his daughter Riley on their Gatlinburg family trip. At the end of it, the text, it says, "My life's been full, I savored much. Good friends, good times, a loved one's touch. Perhaps my time seemed all too brief, don't lengthen it now with undue grief. Lift up your hearts in peace to thee, God has me now, he set me free." We would also like to take this time to thank the family and friends of Justin, as well as Detective Thompson, Detective Broderick, the journalists we have spoken to, and David Moffett, who was the Franklin County coroner. We really appreciate everyone helping us learn about who Justin was as a person and helping us shed light on his memory.
And then if you guys have any information to share, any tips, any questions, these are a couple of numbers that you can reach. The first one being the Franklin County Sheriff's Department for direct messages about Justin's case is going to be 614-525-3333. And then Crime Stoppers also has a text tips number on the screen, and then as well as a phone number. And then any questions for Cold Case, you can reach our coldcase@masonschools.com, as well as our phone number listed at the bottom of the screen.
And then before time for questions, we do want to invite Justin's family to release a few balloons to honor and remember Justin. As we know, it is a tradition for your family, and we would love to carry it on. And now we have time for questions.
What was Martin convicted? Like, why was he convicted for felonious assault? Do you know?
So basically, know that Martin something had went down at a couple of people, and he had basically attempted murder. It was the attempted murder and the felonious assault were both like the same charge, like he got charged for those at the same time. Am I allowed to say what he did?
Ohio does not have an attempted murder charge. It's a felonious assault. So that's what the charge
Yeah.
was, felonious assault.
Am I allowed to say what he did?
Oh, I mean, yes, that was on.
Okay, he committed a chest stabbing. So, that's
The guy
basically
is
what
still
that
alive, that's why it was
Yeah,
attempted
he
murder.
is still alive. He just continues to suffer to this day in and out of the hospital from heart complications.
I know that he had kids. I don't know if you mentioned like their age, but have you guys like tried talking?
When,
Riley.
Riley
She's right here.
here.
Her name is
She-
Riley.
She was almost 2 years old when this happened.
Yeah, so she was really young. She wasn't.
She's 20.
You said there was no security
Yeah.
footage. Was it just broken? Like, did one of those other people that were doing nasty stuff kind of like cut the cord or something? Or, I mean, it was a cash.
Just wasn't working.
For what we heard, it
Wasn't
just wasn't
working.
working. Just
We just,
random.
from like
just wasn't
news
working.
articles, and when we talked to like Detective Thompson, they just said that it wasn't
No
working.
security footage was working, and there were little to no evidence, little to no witnesses at all.
So how was Martin connected? We know the Emily Naomi connection, we know the David to Naomi connection. How was Martin
Related.
connected?
Martin is Naomi's nephew.
Nephew.
So, I'm pretty
We
yeah.
believe that's the.
Yeah, we believe that's their
Definitely.
relation, so we just, we're not for sure, so we just put up relation. We just know that they do have some sort of DNA relation for sure.
Yes.
Okay, and then did Naomi or David have any violence in their history or even moving forward, any violent acts?
David, yes. I don't remember the charges off the top of my head, but he had many charges, including all of the forgery ones and all of that. But he did have, I believe, assault and those types of charges. So he was definitely not.
And then did anybody really put the pressure on the Emily who actually worked there?
So
That's to see what she knew, if anything?
she did talk, they did talk with Emily, like Detective Roddick and the police, and she did come like clean about what was happening. Like she talked about the bank drop instead of it being that night, about it being the night after instead.
Yeah.
But they did speak with her.
Any other questions?
You had mentioned at some point that whoever had killed Justin had to be like a certain height and a certain weight. You said like 5'6", 6 foot, like
Yeah.
121
That-
pounds, something like that. And then later you listed the persons of interest. Was there any evidence, or was there anything in the investigation where somebody cross-checked that height and weight with the persons of interest that you guys had?
So if you can already tell, like with their like description of the suspect, that is a very like wide range. Like
Yeah.
anybody could be in between 5'6" and 6 foot and 120 and like 200 pounds. Like that's anybody. So I think that was just there was little to no evidence at the time. They would have put out the description of suspect, just like kind of what they heard, just a little sketch of it. I'm not sure if it was 110% accurate. I just think that it's kind of hard to compare the two because that's such a wide variety. Like anybody could fit in that variety of a description. So,
Who was supposed to do the bank drop the day of the murder?
we did try to find out who was supposed to do that. I
don't know
think we
exactly,
ever
but
found
we do
out.
know that wasn't supposed to be the night that it did.
Yes.
It was supposed to be the night.
Prior. What's happening?
Who was the witness that actually gave?
We don't really know. So on like all like the news articles that we looked at, 10 articles, like CNN 10 I think it was, and then on Ohio Attorney General, it just said like little witnesses, as well as when we talked to the detectives, they didn't give us the names, they also just said little witnesses. The description of the suspect was from the Ohio Attorney General's general websites.
As well as through speaking with some detectives, we found that they thought it would be a better idea for us to not try and go too far into reaching suspects or possible witnesses, just because in the area it was a very high crime area and anybody could be, they just didn't want to put us at risk. So we weren't allowed to reach out to any of the possible witnesses, which we heard of one being a pizza delivery guy. But we don't know much else besides that.
So I got a question. So, if I heard you right, I've always understood that, for 19 years, I've always understood that the trial was gonna be in January. He was killed in November, 2 months before the trial. Tonight I heard you say all those other charges were for prior forgeries, so that case get dropped because it worked?
It did just get dismissed. So the charges didn't fully go through for Naomi or David in their charges.
Yes, with Justin being the primary primary person to testify, with him being on not only 2 months just before he was supposed to testify, there wasn't really anybody to bring those facts to the case, so the case was dismissed.
Even though he was helping the detective and they had his signed sworn statement, he wasn't there to say, yeah, that's my statement? Is that what you're telling me?
That is kind of, it's kind of what we're told. I mean, we tried to figure out what was
I'm not trying to go above your level, I'm just asking.
Oh, yeah, no, of course. We tried to figure out, like, what the facts, the reasons why people were pointed out, why this happened, why this happened to Justin, why Justin did this. Everything came back so inconclusive for us, with it being such a random thing, with Justin being such a lively person, such a loved person. It was so random, so it was kind of hard to put everything, all the facts together, all the pieces together. No witnesses, no anybody, and then with that case also happening, and then with Justin being unfortunately killed 2 months before he was supposed to testify, and all of that being dismissed, and this file that we were heard happened, and that also not being able to be located. I just think that things weren't done in the correct manner that they could have been done. Yeah.
You said that he was shot at, I think, 6 times, but only one of the casings were found.
Yes.
It looked like in the picture that it was like pretty, like forestry around that.
It was a neighborhood behind the strip.
And a strip mall.
It
So
was
it's a strip
part
mall
of the
with
strip
other
mall.
areas
So
around.
was it like just potentially like there was just too many like things that kind of like that made it hard to look for the casings, or do you think they like whoever the perpetrator was and picked up those casings?
So that we aren't really sure. So we think it just they weren't able to be found because he was killed in the parking lot, so not where the neighborhood was behind it. So he was like leaving work at the time, and like when at the crime scene, all they found was just the one bullet casing. We don't know what happened to the other ones. We've talked to Detective Thompson and Detective Roddick. They also don't know what happened to the other bullet casings, just that the one was found.
Detective Roddick did say that he talks about how like when a bullet enters the body, it sometimes, since it's water and it slows it down, sometimes that could be a reason why there's only one and some of them could have been still in there.
So I'm not sure if this was completely answered already, but how was the identifying information for the potential suspect gathered because there was no footage?
The pizza delivery suspect, or the witness.
Yeah, Detective Thompson did say that there's a pizza delivery guy, and then a few family members did say that there were a few other witnesses, but nothing really came with much of them. But the pizza delivery guy was the one that we found out from Detective Thompson.
And because Justin didn't run in crowds, then there'd be guns and drugs. He didn't run in those crowds, so it wasn't random. So that left them only someplace else to look, if you ask me.
Out of the potential suspects, did anyone own the gun?
Did anyone what? Sorry.
Own the gun?
Any of the potential
I don't
suspects?
think there was ever
Remember
a gun
anyone
recovered.
saying-
I don't think the gun was ever recovered.
The gun wasn't ever recovered. The only evidence that was really left behind was just the one bullet casing.